Hey there everybody, it's Lynnea here for Trinity Stamps. Today I'm showing you an easy partial die cutting technique that can be used to create a border die out of pretty much any stamp set and coordinating die set that you have. So I'm going to start here with the Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood stamp set. This is a large 4x11 stamp set. There's a little garage, a bunch of houses. There's even like a postman, a little dog, a mailbox, fire hydrant, everything you need to create a little neighborhood scene. Today though, I am just going to be using the 4 houses. I thought about using the garage, but I decided to go with just the houses. I'm going to line them up on a piece of cardstock near the bottom and just use my Misty grid lines to make sure that they are straight. Since I'm not cutting these out individually, I'm going to be doing that partial die cutting technique to create a border. I am going to put these on the lid of my Misty so that the stamps are touching. Usually there's a little bit of, I call it like a lip in the photopolymer, where the actual portion that stamps has a little extra around it. So that little extra lip is going to make sure that there is some spacing, but I still wanted these close enough to look like a border. I'm inking them up with Ink on 3 Juicy Watermark embossing ink, and then I heat emboss those with white embossing powder. I'm going to be doing some easy ink blending resist here with the embossing powder, but if you wanted to just stamp these in a Copic safe ink or any kind of marker friendly ink and do some coloring with markers, pencils, watercolors, whatever you wanted to use, that would be totally fine. I just wanted to go with something easy and simple since I wanted the focus of this card to be on the partial die cutting technique. So I'm just going to go ahead and take a rainbow of inks and my blending buddies and go ahead and blend color over these houses, and you can see the white embossing start to come to life as I blend over them. I wanted to create a rainbow, and so my idea was to use just 3 colors of ink, red, yellow, and blue, to create a rainbow. And I had my inks all set out, and I grabbed my blue ink, which in the end is totally okay because it's still going to be that middle color there, and it's going to blend with the pink to create the purple and the yellow to create the green, but this rainbow is out of order. So if that bothers you, I am so sorry. I reached for the wrong ink. In the end, I think it's totally okay because I'm just going to put yellow on the one end and then flip back over and add some yellow to the other end too, to mix the yellow and pink together to create orange. So I will have a full rainbow by the time I'm done ink blending. It's just an out of order rainbow. Once I'm done, I'm going to grab a clean cloth and I'm just going to buff away any extra ink that is sitting on top of that embossing powder. Now I'm moving on and creating the rest of my card. I'm using the Modern Embossed A7 Layers die set. And my idea at first was to create a long 7-inch long border out of the Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood stamp set. But the partial die cutting technique that I wanted to do, you have to lay the panel off of your die cutting machine plates. So I had to use one of the smaller dies in the Modern Embossed A7 Layers die set to cut this panel down first. And you'll see what I mean here. My panel could only be 6 inches wide because that is how wide my die cutting machine is. And you can see here, to do partial die cutting, you want to position the die around your image, but then I am using that plate and only putting the plate over the part of the die that I want to cut. So I want to create a faux border die. So I want to make sure that there's about maybe like 3/4 of an inch to an inch at the bottom of this die that is not going to cut. So I lined up that die, and then I placed my plate so that it is only covering the portion that I wanted to cut, and part of that die is not going to cut. You can see there that the bottom part, because the plate wasn't covering it, there's no pressure there for the die cutting machine to cut, so it's not going to cut that part. I'll show you this one more time. I position the die around the house, and then I put my cardstock background layer onto my cutting plate and put my my top cutting plate only over the portion that I wanted to cut. I left the rest of that cardstock hanging off. So now I have a partial die cut border, and I repeated that process 2 more times with the remaining houses, and that extra piece almost fell right off. But I do have to snip in between the houses. So I'm just going to use my scissors to do that to make really easy cut lines. I just kind of rounded those cut lines to make it look more finished. So I'm just sticking my scissors down in and cutting out those inner portions between the houses that didn't cut. And the end result is going to be a faux border die cut that I made using the Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood stamp and die set. I think it's a really fun technique that you can replicate with pretty much any coordinating stamp and die set. I wanted to create a bold background for my faux border. So I'm using the Slimline Stripe stencil. This is a 2-pack stencil. I'm using the thin diagonal stripes. I sprayed the back with pixie spray so that I could make sure that these little stripes were not going to move on me. And then I'm using a blending buddy that I have reserved for black ink and my Ink on 3 blackout detail ink, and I'm going to just stencil that black background. I wanted to create a faux grass and sky kind of scene behind my scene. So I'm using some polka dotted patterns from the Rainbow Brights 4x9 Slimline paper pack, and I'm cutting those with the largest die from the Modern Embossed A7 Layers die set. I love this die set because not only does it cut your layers, but it also embosses a thin frame around the outside. It's a really nice finished look. So the 4x9 paper pad is obviously not going to cover a full 5x7 card front. So I definitely needed 2 colors, which worked out just fine anyway, because I wanted to have a ground and a sky. So I have the green polka dot on the bottom and the blue on the top that I cut with that largest die from the Modern Embossed A7 Layers die set. And then I just positioned them kind of overlapping each other. And I'll use a thin strip of black cardstock to cover up that seam line. And that's going to make everything look more cohesive. I needed to add a sentiment to my card. So I'm going to grab the Big and Bold Sentiments stamp set. This is the large 6x8 stamp set. And I'm just going to stamp Miss You with black ink. I'm also stamping a smaller sentiment that says I Really Do, and that is from the Supporting Script stamp set. These 2 stamp sets work together very well. I'll add my little faux border scene onto my pattern paper background. Then I'm going to use some foam tape just to pop up those 2 sentiment strips. I'm going to put Miss You coming in from the top right, and then the I Really Do coming in from the bottom left. So the whole sentiment will read, Miss You, I Really Do. I thought that was just cute. So here's my finished 5x7 card. Absolutely love transforming stamps and getting more out of your stamps and dies. So I hope that you will try this technique with your stamp sets and coordinating dies to create a faux border using a partial die cutting technique. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you're inspired, and I hope that you take these tips and tricks and try them in your craft room. Coming up on the screen are 2 videos that I thought you might enjoy. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon. Bye.